What if we get the opportunity to ask our deepest questions around consciousness, our life on earth, about healing and holistic well being, and learn from one of the most experienced and wisest doctors, practitioners, healers, scientists, and spiritual teachers around the world? So, turning this deeper desire into reality, Living Consciously has come up with the podcast series Soul-Versation. This platform is created by Living Consciously, an organization in India inspired to ensure emotional health care, spiritual and personal growth opportunities for everyone. So I heartily welcome all the viewers and listeners on the very first episode of our podcast series, Soul-Versation. So to speak on the topic of trapped emotion today, we have with us Delberta Watson. She is a certified emotion code practitioner, and which is my all-time favorite and most used energy healing system. And she is one of the most generous healer I have ever met. So, dear Delberta, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you.
I'm super excited to dive into this powerful topic today.
Yes.
Okay. So my first question to you, Delberta, I know that you're coming from a family of healers. So tell us about yourself to our viewers, about your initiative, Let It Go to Live, and how you started this healing work.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm Native American Indian, half Navajo Indian, come originally from Arizona in the United States. And I was raised with healing. My aunt was a medicine woman, a healer. And so I was raised with my mother. My mother was Native American Indian. So I was raised with her with the Native American healing. So we would go to the Indian reservation and we would attend different ceremonies, things like that. I didn't live on the reservation. I lived far from it, but we would always travel there, or we would have a healer come to our house. So I was raised with that understanding of a healing that is energetic. And so I was a Christian. I became a Christian as an adult and went to Christian churches and was told that it was witchcraft and different things like that. So I moved away from it. I am a believer in God. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe in the power of God's love in all of us. And throughout the years had always had my connection with him and sought him for guidance, for love, things of that nature. But it came to a point where I became very depressed and lost my identity. I didn't know who I was anymore. I was a mother. I was a wife. My husband was in the military and we traveled the world. And when my children got older, I just came to a point where I didn't know who I was. So through those depressions and trying to figure things out in my life, trying to go to God, looking for healing, I've gone to counselors, and through even going to different counselors, I always kept my connection with God and knowing that there had to be some other way. There had to be, I should not feel this way. I shouldn't feel depressed. I shouldn't feel sad. I shouldn't feel alone. And so I was raised in an abusive home. My mother was physically and verbally abusive. My father was an alcoholic, but he was not mean. He was a very loving man, very kind, very generous. So I really lived with two worlds within my home, and I know, and there's many of us have that. And, but when you have physical beating, the yelling, telling you that you're no good, you'll never amount to anything, you're stupid, things like that, that can really create a lot of trauma within our mind. So I had that, but as I grew up, I refused to accept that as a part of my life. refusing to accept that as my identity. I'm going to fix the camera here. Refusing to accept that as my identity, but I just could not get rid of the feeling of feeling sad and alone and unworthy. I couldn't get rid of that feeling. So I decided that I was going to start meditating. I didn't know how to meditate. And I feel like as a Christian, it was very frowned upon. But in the Bible, God's word says to be still and know that I am God. So how do we become still? To me, becoming still is quieting our mind, quieting everything within our being, and listening for the voice of God. So I started meditating, and not to do anything highly extraordinary. I just wanted to hear from God. I needed to hear his voice. I needed to hear his direction. We were in the process of moving from Oklahoma to Arizona. So I was meditating, and I think I had been meditating for about a month and a half, and just learning to quiet all the negative thoughts. You're not worthy. You've done everything wrong. You can't do this. You can't do that. And so I was just trying to learn to shut that out of my mind. And so I was getting into the habit, 20 minutes, nothing major, 20 minutes of just listening to some beautiful, quiet music, piano, whatever. And all of a sudden, I heard not an audible voice, but I sensed it was a male voice that said, "You will receive your healing in Arizona." And I opened my eyes and I thought, what was that?
Wow.
I had never had that happen before. And so I said, okay. And that was it. That was the only time I heard that. So for the next couple months, I held on to that promise that moving to Arizona was what was supposed to happen, that I was going to receive my healing. I didn't know what kind of healing it would be. So I moved to Arizona. We were in the process of moving. I moved there first. My husband stayed here in Oklahoma. We were trying to sell our house. So we bought a house in Arizona. I moved there. And I didn't get cable. I wanted to read and just connect back with God. So I did. I just listened to music. I prayed a lot, just spoke with him. I just got out in nature, enjoyed everything. And one day I was watching Gaia, and it's a channel. I was watching Gaia, and I had also seen it on YouTube as well, but I saw the interview on Gaia with Dr. Bradley Nelson talking about the emotion code and how negative emotion, and a negative emotion is a negative, each emotion has a vibration, and they're negative. And sometimes when things are overwhelming, they can get stuck within us. So what happens is, if we have, let's say, the emotion of feeling unworthy, maybe for me, trying to get my mother's love. My mother never told us she loved us. There was one time that she told us that she loved us as a young child. But I remember a lot of yelling, a lot of hitting, things like that. So it would make sense that from that experience as a child that I had a sense of feeling unworthy. And it probably wasn't just her. It was probably other things in my life that, my negative talk made me feel unworthy. So he just started talking about how those can become trapped and how it's just an energy. It's a negative energy that just needs to be released. So he went on to talk about that and how sometimes they can create physical pain. Sometimes we have shoulder pain, we have neck pain. Sometimes, and for me at that time, I couldn't feel love in my heart. I felt empty. I felt very empty, and I felt nothing. And I was very depressed. I was crying a lot. I felt like I wanted to die, really. And I just felt hopeless. So after watching his video, the interview was still on, and I went to his website. And I found a practitioner. I watched some of his videos, got more information, and I was very concerned that it was wrong to do this type of a healing, that maybe it was wrong, maybe this was against God, maybe this was some type of demonic healing modality, something, connected with the devil, negative energies. So I did a lot of research. I reached out to a practitioner. She is a Christian woman, very kind. She explained to me that, I can explain it, but this is another way of God's healing. And in the Bible, it talks about many gifts. We have many gifts, many of us. Not everyone is a healer. Some are able to prophesy. Some are able to have visions, things. So God uses all of us in many, many different ways. We're all not supposed to have the same gift, because if we did, we would never do any of God's work. And so I started my treatment with her. It was over the phone. I had never met her. I never saw a picture of her, other than the website. And so she started coming up with these emotions of, something, feeling abandonment at 12 years old, feeling crying, at 3 years old, all these emotions. And at first I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel anything, but I did feel hope. And so I continued with my treatment. I was getting it every 2 weeks, one session every 2 weeks. She was releasing a lot of emotions stemming from my childhood. And so I just continued with my treatment, and I was sexually abused as well. So that was something that I had her work on with me, because I feel like a lot of my emotional distress also came from that, unknowingly. And it affects my marriage, it affects our relationships, it affects ourselves with some of the negative talk. And we don't understand why we are so hard on ourselves. And to find out that negative emotions are stuck within us, and we wonder why we're so angry. Well, and I was molested by both male and female, up through the age of about 13, maybe 12 and a half, as young as 4 months old. And I remember it. So it's very difficult to have to deal with that and try to live a joyful, happy life. And there are some that have just pushed it to the side and they don't deal with it, or maybe they've gone through counseling. And so I think that for myself to be able to be here and share my story and let others know that there's hope for them, that we don't need to go. I went through counseling. I tried to talk about all of this, and it was very difficult. I went through Christian counseling most of the time, and just couldn't find any peace. And so now, through using the emotion code and releasing these negative emotions, I'm still on my healing journey. I'm constantly doing work on myself. Sometimes I will still reach out to my practitioner and have her help me with something that's a little too deep for me to deal with. And so I still go to her for help. So yeah, and here I am. I'm certified. I got my certification in the emotion code. I had been practicing it for about a year and finally decided to get my certification. And now I am working to get my certification in the body code, which works with more of the body and organs and glands and things like that.
Wow, yours is such a powerful story, Delberta. And this takes me to our next question that I really wanted to understand. I've always believed that there is an emotional component to illnesses that we feel, even the physical symptoms that we have, and we don't deal with this emotional component, and we are very good at ignoring it. And we have missed this piece in medicine also, and we kept on relying on drugs and completely ignoring emotional baggage. And so, as Bradley Nelson he was saying, one of his podcasts, that it is sometimes the missing piece of the puzzle when talking about the physical symptoms that sometimes we have, and we go to the doctor and we're asking, and doctors say that, oh, there's nothing wrong with you, and we are feeling this tightness and aches in our body. So we all have somewhere heard of the term emotional baggage. So help our viewers to understand, what does it actually mean?
Well, now that I know about the emotion code and understand it, we are literally carrying around within our being, within our energy field, within our body, balls of negative energy. So Dr. Bradley Nelson says that a negative emotion, that energy is about the size of, it could be a grapefruit or a cantaloupe, quite a large size. And if you can imagine, even if it were to be a ball about that size of, let's say, crying, close to our heart, in that our energy field, well, what happens is when you have a ball of negative energy, that distorts our energy field. So rather than energy flowing through our meridians, through our chakras, it's creating blockages. And so when, let's say, our liver meridian, if we have a negative emotion stuck within the area of our liver in our energy field, our liver meridian channel cannot, it's supposed to be a river of energy, and it can't flow. So you've got these blockages in there, and most of us, Dr. Bradley Nelson said that most of us have more than 100 trapped emotions. I can tell you that I've released several hundred. Several hundred emotions have been released from myself, between my practitioner and myself. I'm constantly removing them. And it's from childhood, or it could be from 5 months ago. I feel like I'm dealing more with emotions even from 5 months ago or 2 weeks ago. Even just having, maybe reading, maybe watching TV. Right now, there's a lot of chaos. So, we're reading TV, we're watching TV, and we may see a negative event that happened. And if we feel heartache for the person, or we are crying, or we become very emotional, or now we're worrying, let's say, about something, those can get stuck on us. And the more our body is out of alignment, the more negative energy will get stuck within us and not process. So we want to get all of that baggage out and clean our house. Our body is supposed to be the temple of God. So we need to clean it out, clean out our temple. And God has more than one way of doing that. And I believe that by us becoming aware and conscious of our body and our energy, that we don't feel good, that something's off, I think that will help us to identify that we've got emotional baggage.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Okay, so this takes me to my next question from you, which is around emotions and energy. Okay. So as quantum physics, it is all backed up by quantum physics and general science. We say that everything is made up of energy. So can you just talk a little bit about emotions and energy? Because for us it is, and how do we know that we have trapped emotions? Like how do our viewers know that we have these trapped emotions within our body, and how we can release it? So we have wonderful healing modalities like emotion code. And how one can go about it, and how to recognize that.
Yeah. Well, if you've ever experienced any type of a negative event, I would, even being stuck in traffic. How many times have we been stuck in traffic in our car and have been frustrated with the people in front of us, or you have someone passing us by and cutting us off, and we get very angry and we yell at them? That is a negative event. You look at 9/11, when that happened, when the Twin Towers in New York, that was a negative event. Now, I wasn't there when it happened, but I can assure you that day there was a lot of panic all over the world. that day when, that event happened, we were living on a military base, and I was frantic, and everyone was running to go get their children out of school. And as the children were coming out, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I was panicked. I was scared. So sometimes those emotions, we don't process them. And I think that because that was such a long event, it most likely gave us more and more time for energy to get stuck within us. But if we've ever had any negative event, if we've ever, maybe had financial difficulties, if we were ever abused, if we ever had a friend or a parent or a relative die, and we're suffering from grief, sometimes people don't get over that. And you have someone, I know a few people, and my mother was this way. Every time my grandfather's death time or his birthday came around, she was very, very depressed, very depressed. And it was year after year after year. And I didn't understand it. And I really frowned upon her for that and thought, why do you want to keep living this way? Why do you keep reliving this every year? She couldn't help it. It wasn't intentional. It was subconscious, because she had these emotions within her, let's say of grief or feeling abandoned, whatever it could have been, that they vibrate, and they're just vibrating. And so it tends to either bring that up, and she probably had a memory field right in front of her face. She had the memory field of the death of her father, of the grief of it. So she continued to relive it. And that's part of the body code, but that's also part of emotions that are stuck within us. So we all have emotional baggage. I would say that if anyone who doesn't know if they have an emotional, trapped emotion, negative emotion, then they should just kind of ask their body, ask themselves. And I think that that's one of the things that we have, well, it's not that I forgot to do it. I was never taught to do it, was to talk to ourselves, ask ourselves. Because if our body is a temple of God and God lives within us, then he knows all things. And if we're connected, if our physical being, our spiritual being is connected with him, then we should be able to ask and talk. And I think that that's something that is not being taught, that we can actually do that, and that we can be guided, and the Lord will talk to us and guide us and give us answers. But I believe that everybody has negative emotions. I think most of us do. And it's really, if you are not feeling right, if you're not feeling at peace, if you're feeling a lot of anger or frustration or abandon, you've probably had a negative emotion. I know a few people that they do not like being around anyone that is happy. It frustrates them. And sometimes, when we have someone that we don't even know why we don't like someone, we just don't like them. Well, why is that? I've learned that those that are around us are a reflection of ourselves. So is there something within us that they have, and that's what we are sensing and we don't like? Because we're sensing what is within us. But I think that if everyone takes time to just ask themselves, why am I feeling so angry right now? Why am I filled with fear? I think that will help guide them, and the emotion code is very helpful in releasing that from their bodies.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always feel that our bodies are very wise. They are carrying a lot of wisdom, and it is always, trying to communicate with us. And I felt it a lot of time before meeting you. I didn't know the reason, why I feel angry at, sometimes when everything in my environment is going well, and I feel this tightness in my body all the time. And when I had this session with you, it was powerful, and I felt the shift.
Oh, that's amazing.
Okay. That was powerful. So we talked a lot about subconscious mind here.
Mm-hmm.
So can you just explain it to our viewers about subconscious mind and conscious mind, about this dichotomy. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we've always heard those terms. And prior to working with the emotion code and understanding energy, and that everything is energy, even my computer, everything is energy. They're made of different particles. There's within our body, you're looking into, let's say, a skin cell, you're getting into the nucleus, you get into all the particles and the atom, and everything's just moving around. Everything's moving around. Everything is energy, constantly moving. And so we have the conscious mind, and we're aware. I see this room that I'm around. I see you with the conscious mind. I could walk into a room and consciously I could see you. We could smile at one another. Subconsciously, I'm not paying, and consciously, I'm not paying attention to anyone around because my eyes are fixated on you to go greet you. But subconsciously, our being is taking an assessment of everything around us. We're not aware of it. So when you quiet the mind and you're trying to tune into your body, to your connection with God, which I believe, our subconscious mind is directly connected with him. If it weren't, I just don't believe that we would have the abilities and the power to do the things that we are able to do through healing. In the Bible, it talks about faith. That if we have the faith of a mustard seed, that we could tell this mountain to move from here to there. Well, why haven't any mountains been moved? We don't have faith. So, and I believe that faith comes from the subconscious mind, because the subconscious mind is not limited. Our conscious mind, we've been told, oh, you can't do that. Oh, you can't go to college because only certain classes of people can go to college. You can't do that job because that's something our family doesn't do. We've always been, lower class, let's say. Or, our different cultures. Oh, we can't do that because our people do not do that. And I think that there is some importance in paying respect to our cultures when there is good things that are taught within it: love, respect, kindness, generosity, compassion. And sometimes with some cultures, there's some dark things that are taught. And sometimes it's not even with a culture, it's just a person. They just, for whatever reason, have a darker side to them and they give into that. So I think being more conscious of our being and our connection with God, and taking that action to be intentional about connecting with God. I think that is being conscious and aware, and just like your organization, living consciously. We have to live in an awareness, an intentional awareness, and every day wake up with intent on being loving, on changing ourselves, going within, connecting with God. And it is through that subconscious mind that things are revealed, I believe. Which again, I always go back to God, because I think that our connection, if we don't have a connection with God, I think I just don't think that you're going to have the peace that we all seek and desire, because I believe it comes from him. We're made in his image. We're a reflection of God, our creator, spirit.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, and I believe we all are born with, immense potential. And sometimes while growing up, we have this limiting beliefs about ourselves, and we don't explore the possibility of how far we can go. So So there is this another question that pops up in my mind. So you begin every session with prayer.
Yes.
And some healers, they incorporate their prayers in their healing practice.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the role of prayer in our healing, and how we can like communicate with the higher power, with God, and learn to hear the answers in our life? How we can do that?
Well, for me, in my sessions, for me, I feel that I am only a vessel. I'm just a vessel. My connection is with God. I always make sure that it's with God, because I know that there are some energies that are out there that you can connect with unknowingly. So I read my Bible. I am very careful about what I listen to, even the music. Up until a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, I listened to a lot of the stars that are out there, and after recently finding out about a lot of intentional negative messages that are in the music, I just don't. So I'm very careful in who I connect with, and I just make sure I'm always connected with God. And I believe that because of my intent and love, when I work with a client, that God allows me to pass his love on to others. Now, it is up to each person. I can't help a person take action with their own connection with God. It needs to be on their own. They need to take that step. But for me, using prayer, it allows them to have that exposure to the love and to the healing that God wants us to have. He wants us to be whole. And part of being whole is being healed from our traumas. And yes, we do need to go to God and ask him for guidance and ask him for healing. But there are so many modalities for healing, and energy work, releasing trapped emotions, trapped negative energy is one of them. Rather than, I foresee a world where we can not rely on modern medicine, on the chemistry of pills, and that we're able to go within and seek God and know and have that faith that he can heal us. We can receive our healing through him. We don't need to add toxins into our body. We don't need to do that. So prayer is very important, and I do pray. Sometimes there's energies that I release with a client that it will not. So normally I just use a magnet, running it over the governing meridian. And what that does is that energy that's stuck within our body, when we run it over the governing meridian of our body, it breaks up that energy in it, and it allows it to dissipate. There have been some imbalances that, for what inherited or dealing with a dark energy, a curse, maybe a generational curse, a courting. Sometimes we could have courting with other people, that it will not let me release it with running a magnet over my head. I have to pray. So I was like, okay. So I just know now to just pray with that energy. Sometimes I will just receive a sense of knowing if you need to pray. I just can feel the dark energy with it. So I'll just pray and release it. But most of the time I just use a magnet and run that over my governing meridian to just get rid of that negative energy out of our field. Yeah.
And I was reading this research. I was reading a lot of research papers also that has been done on prayer, which shows that it has similar benefits to meditation. It can actually calm down your nervous system. Mm-hmm. So prayer is powerful. And also, like during my personal healing session with you, which was again a very transforming experience for me, I was surprised how this goes back to many generations back, and how we inherit trauma, emotion, which is passed down through generation in families. Mm-hmm. So tell us about how does intergenerational trauma work? And science says that, even animal pass traumatic experiences up to 4 generations. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So again, when we experience a negative event, let's say, it could be anything. We could have what's called an emotional compound. It's when two emotions become blended and they become one. So the subconscious mind cannot see that one of them is heartache and another one is abandonment, because they've blended together, similar to mixing paint and getting one color, one unique color. So when we release, we can inherit those emotions, and we can inherit sometimes different traumas. And so when we're doing energy work, let's say an emotional compound will come up of the heartache and abandonment, and it may go back. I've most of the time it's about 5 years. It's usually we could inherit it from our mother's side, and then I'll ask, who did she inherit it from? She inherited it from her father. Okay, well, who did he inherit it from? He inherited it from his mother. So most of the times it's about 5 generations or less. But sometimes it does come up to where it's further back. And I have had generational negative emotions that were trapped, that I inherited as far back as I've gone back 73 years. And that has happened for a few other clients as well. And so when we release that, it goes back through every single person that has inherited that emotion, and we'll go back to the original person. And so that emotion is released from that original ancestor and everyone down to us and our descendants. So it's released from everybody. And it's amazing, because when I do energy work on myself or any of my children and something inherited comes up, we're releasing from our whole group, from our whole family, that, as well as everybody else. But so that's really nice. And it was shocking to me to see that I could inherit an emotion of, let's say, depression. My mother was depressed. My grandfather was depressed. He actually committed suicide in his 50s. And or maybe I think it was in his 60s, I can't remember, but he committed suicide. I've had other relatives that committed suicide. I know that at one point I was not thinking of suicide, but I was really very, very sad and very depressed and felt like I just had no will to live. And at times we do have that. So those can pass on. So, if you look at someone in your family that is suffering, maybe many people suffer depression, that may be because there is a energy there of depression that has been passed down from an ancestor, and many people have it. So getting rid of that will not just help you, but it will help others. And releasing that one emotion will not make you run out and jump for joy and think that everything is perfect. There's a lot of events and a lot of emotions that have brought us to the point that we're at now. So it's really a matter of removing the layers. You have layer upon layer upon layer, and just removing them one by one. And so I've been on my healing journey now for about almost 3 years. I'm still releasing things, but I feel so much lighter. I feel happier. And it's a powerful thing. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to understand, what is the role and importance of heart for our emotions and health? Because sometimes I feel a lot of heaviness, whenever I feel any sort of difficult emotion, or I'm going through anything overwhelming. So I feel a lot of heaviness in my chest area. And at Bradley Nelson also, he talks about heart wall. So tell us about it. What is it?
Yeah, so we've got emotions that get trapped. They surround our heart in layers, and one by one. So those may come up in an energy session. I do a separate energy session. I think it's ideal for someone to start with their heart wall, because I think when you can open up your heart, it allows you to really connect with yourself, with God, with other people around you, and it will help your healing journey. I think the heart wall should be released first. And there's anywhere from 5 to 25 emotions. Everyone is different. It just really depends. And it could take anywhere from, 1 to 5 sessions. It just depends on what your body, and your subconscious will only release so many emotions a day. If it is not ready, there have been emotions to where someone had asked about something specifically, and I had asked her body about that, and it would not let us release it. And so I asked why, and I asked, is this because she hasn't learned her lesson yet? And I got a yes. And it's like, okay. So she was okay with that. But it was very interesting, and it kind of took us both back. And that was the first time that I had ever experienced that, to where we got to know that it can't be released. But the subconscious mind knows what you're ready for. And it may not have even been a lesson, more than it was just, she needed that right now to help her in her journey. So releasing the heart wall is very important. It will allow us to open up, to feel more love, to feel more joy. So I think that that's important to release.
Okay, wow. Okay, so this takes me to my last question, which is, it is very common, for doctors and physicians to believe that there is no connection between our emotional and physical health. It seems crazy to me. So what do you actually tell to the skeptics of energy healing and of this kind of modality?
Yeah. Well, I was a skeptic. Again, as a Christian, we were told to go to talk to a counselor. So we go to a counselor and we talk about our emotion. We talk about the events. We talk about our childhood. We do a lot of crying. And for me, I left feeling empty. I left feeling like nothing had changed. And after several months of doing the same thing and going in there for an hour and paying all this money, it wasn't helping me. I wasn't feeling any better. And so I think that each person needs to do their own research. Myself, I did my research. I looked into it. When I first started with my practitioner, I did not tell her anything specific other than she did an evaluation on me, and I do an evaluation on my clients as well. And to just kind of understand what they want to work on. Now, if somebody came to me and said, well, I have just been very depressed, I don't know why. It's like, well, okay, maybe her spouse had died, her children don't come around, something of that nature. Or maybe she lost a pet, really grieving. Maybe she lost her job, something. So those events can take a negative, a negative turn for you as far as your emotions. So just going in and doing your research and understanding it. What is this about? If in connection with God is important to you, make sure your practitioner is in tune with what you feel is important. Because we get to choose all of these individuals that we invite into our beautiful journey. We choose them. We're not obligated to have anyone in our life. So do your research, find someone that connects with you. I do use prayer because I feel it's important. And I know that there are skeptics out there, not just in the medical field. They've been trained in a certain way. Their mind only understands certain things. Some of them are not able to step out of the box because there are things, rules, policies that prevent them from doing so. So as more, I believe that more healers are going to be coming up. I believe that what is going on in the world right now is allowing us, it's creating a lot of exposure to a lot of the corruption that's out there, that sometimes people don't have our best interests at heart. And I think that when we can take our own lives and our own healing in our own hands, and that doesn't mean handing yourself over to a healer. You have to do your own work. Our bodies suffer from different diseases. You know, we have diabetes, we have cancers. There are things that we can do to help heal our body, let alone prevent it. But I think that we've become too comfortable as a society and have given our rights over. We've given our bodies, our mind over to others to allow them to be responsible for us instead of us taking that responsibility. And I think that now is a time for us to realize where we have come to and look at our society and understand health-wise, be it mental health or physical health, it's time to take charge now and take back your power and do your research. And that's all that we can do. And each person will connect and resonate with an individual that is meant for them. They're not going, and don't invite someone. If you don't resonate with someone and you two are not on the same page, then it's okay to send them love and blessings and move on, you know? But I think that if they pray about it, ask God to lead them to the person that they are supposed to be connected with. And it's even with friendships. How many times do we, invite friends in our life and we don't like them? I'm surrounded by amazing people, and I connected with you, and you're an amazing woman. And to see how that came along was, to me, divine intervention there to lead that. So pray about it. Do your research, find out what's best for you, look at the modality. Is that something that you're comfortable with? And sometimes you may just try it out and see what happens. But I think if you're bouncing around from healing modality to healing modality, you're not going to really experience what was intended for that healing, because even with the emotion code, had I just done it one time, I would have never felt any different to where maybe I wanted to come back. That's just me. And that's because I had such a darkness around me. I do have clients that have been on their healing journey, and they have wonderful, beautiful responses immediately. And I do a little bit of a breath work, and I just remind them, as we're releasing emotions, to let it go. It no longer serves you. It did for a time, but it doesn't anymore. So just let it go. And I think that's the biggest challenge that we have, is letting things go. We want to hold on to it. We want to control it and allow it to control us, and we're not realizing that we're doing that.
Yeah. And what also, I feel I'm also trained in a healing modality. And what I realize that, sometimes in an emotion code, it takes not a lot of time to release those emotions.
Yeah.
So, but sometimes, with energy healing, it requires your consciousness and the mind, that ability to change our belief systems. And this takes more work than popping a pill, which has myriad of side effects. So people want these days, immediate gratification, and we have to go through a learning curve in switching from a drug-based reality to energy-based reality. Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. Yes.
Yeah, I believe so. And I think the key to all of that is coming back to our connection with our Creator, because He designed our bodies in such a magnificent way, with the ability to not just heal ourselves, but He's provided plants. He's provided foods to heal us. But we have, again, just given up our rights. We've given, and it's been very subtle over time. And we want other people to take responsibility for our bodies so that we can blame them and not take, little changes make all the difference. And I think that with energy work, releasing emotions can make such a impact on weight loss, on habits, breaking habits, insecurity, someone not being able to go look for a new job. They're miserable at their job and they are so terrified about leaving this job because they're afraid of the unknown. Pray about it, trust God, and know that He wants the best for you. And that includes your health, our mental and physical health. So we just have to trust and take action for ourselves in order to see change. Otherwise, we're not going to see change. Even with, you can go to any healing modality, but if you're constantly living with your old patterns and you're not aware of them and you're not trying to break them, there will be either no change or very minimal, and you're going to become discouraged. But I think that for me, when I started, I was very open to it, and I just continued to praise God and thank Him for my practitioner, but what He has shown me, because I would have never known this. And it is so easy. It's so gentle. There's no reliving an event. There's no talking about your childhood. We ask your body, we find the emotion, we ask if there's any other information, like maybe sometimes they want you to know the age. Sometimes it says no, and it's like, okay. And we release it, and that's it. And I believe that that's what God had intended for us. He doesn't want us to relive any event. He wants to heal us. And I think that as more and more vessels of healers come forward, we're going to be able to do that together.
Wow. Okay, so this takes me to the end of our podcast. Do you have any message for our viewers or our listeners? Do you want to say something like?
Yes, I want you to know that you do not have to continue to live as you have lived. God desires for us to be light in the world, and it's hard to be that light when you have so much darkness that is within you that you do not know how to let go of. And I believe that the emotion code is one of the healing modalities that can be so beneficial and so easy and gentle to help you in your journey. And for those who have not started their journey, I think it's time. With anyone watching this podcast, you are here for a reason. You are meant to hear this. It's not by accident. So consider the information that was shared. Pray about it. Do your research. Anyone can reach me. They can go and set up an appointment if they'd like for a consultation. I'd be happy to talk with them. I set up a 30-minute consultation, but they can go to my website, which is letitgo2live.com, letitgo2live.com. So visit my website. You can read a little bit more about it. Set up a consultation. I'd be happy to chat with you and see what we can do to help you in your healing journey.
Okay, so that's wonderful. And that was a very enlightening conversation. Thank you, Delberta, for being here.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. It's an honor.